that. That's huge. That's something I've been doing, but it was verbalized last week, and I felt like, whoa, that's good. And it helps in our being more positive Catholics, I think, which is, I think, very necessary. We need to believe in the resurrection. That's the cornerstone of the church, and not the crucifixion. So there. Step 6. Can we all please read step 6? 1, 2, 3, go.
We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
Okay, defects of character, true for everybody. Nobody's perfect. Nobody. Everybody has a problem. And what you feel is a problem for you, that's not only true for you. Everybody has their own problems. I had my own problems, I still do. You know, everybody has defects of character. But if you want to make that better, good on you. That means you want to be a better person. That is not true for everybody, sadly. A lot of people are very arrogant in thinking that, you know, kahit presidential candidate, nako, I'm not gonna listen to you because my presidential candidate is the one. Diba? Now, there's so much of that. There's so much of that kind of arrogance that they won't even admit. Like, oh, your candidate killed somebody. No. Okay. But to admit, okay, there's a defect of character. I want to make that defect of character better. That admittance, that step it's big. And here you jump into it, you dive into it. Let go. There was one moment at the ranch in Nazareth with Tito Bob where there was a bowl. It was a very Holy Spirit kind of thing where you pick your coats. And the coat I picked was by Kobe Yamada. He said, take the leap of faith and build your wings on the way down. Jump into it. Just dive. Just let go. Just let go and believe in God. Just let go and believe in each other. Stop thinking of what would happen if I surrender myself to God, and just surrender yourself to God. That's totally fine. Nobody ever surrendered themselves to God and went to hell. Let's just say. And heaven is a place on earth, really. We can make a good place for us here. So if you want to get better, if you want to feel better about yourselves, surrender, let go, pray. Ask God to change you. Will it yourself and it will come. This was also said to me by another priest. We had a slaying. Have you been to a slaying? It was.
I think it's called healing.
Healing. It's where they, you know, very powerful. But you know, when you fall, they call it slaying for some reason. I don't know why. It was Father Nelson in Batangas. Very powerful healer. I don't know how he does it. But I believe it's, you know, you gotta have faith. That's the Holy Spirit. When he prayed over me, he said this. This is the line he told me: "Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find." I don't know where exactly that's from. I believe it's Matthew somewhere. I'm not a very big Bible memorizer.
But it's also being, you know, the process of change is also being constantly aware, and that's what's hard. It's being constantly aware that this is my character defect. It's an awareness, living your life consciously, wide awake, making choices consciously is difficult because we're so used to acting on impulse. When we're kids, we get programmed a certain way. We call it conditioning. And I don't know if you're familiar with classical conditioning. But when we're kids, we're programmed a certain way. Dependency is something that is programmed with us. It's not something that came automatically. It's not something we were born with. Dependency is something that we learn, and that we therefore have to unlearn. And that's what's difficult, because it's being constantly aware that every choice you make has to be conscious, and that's what's difficult.
Yeah.
And it's constantly being aware that I can easily fall back to these choices. I can easily fall back to the same person that I used to be to make that I will regret. Alam mo yun? Because it's still inside of you. It's still something, and it's being aware that it's inside of you, that even though you have changed, but knowing that you can still fall back to becoming that person, if you imagine yourself at the worst moments of your life, know that that person is still inside of you, no matter how much better you have gotten. And you can easily fall back to that. And that awareness is what will save you. As difficult as it is, as difficult as it will be in the future, to be making choices consciously, you can't just say, okay, like what you said about the Tagaytay. If anybody had asked you back then, the answer would have been a sure yes.
Now they didn't even bother to ask. Because they know I'm not gonna go.
Yeah.
Because I think I've gotten to a level of my new self where it's a totally different environment now. And for a lot of you, you might still be in the old environment, you might still be with the old group of friends, you might still be with the old. So that's more difficult. When I just finished the program and I went back out, it was very tough because I was back in my old environment, back with my old cousins, back with my old friends, back with my family, who's very alcoholic, as I mentioned, and back with, and my cousins, they're all connected to my old friends somehow for some reason.
And you were like an outcast for a time. Because
yeah, they all, when I started saying no to them, it was very hard. That was probably one of the hardest things to do. Because to think, yeah, I'm gonna say no to them one day, like, yeah, I'm strong now, yeah. And then when you're there, they ask, hey, you want to drink? A part of you says, oh man, I want to drink that tequila, man.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah, one drink, I'm okay, one drink, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But no, don't even drink that one drink. But it's been several years. As I said, I've been sober 10 years now. 10 years in September almost. Or has it? No, 11 years in September. I've been sober 10 years now, and I've been saying no so long that I've built a new group of friends. I'm married now. I have a totally different life, and I'm secure in this new self. Right? I see now that that's so childish, and it's a matter of maturity now, and I'm proud of who I am. And I saw that in Edwin actually. He told us a bit of what he's doing now and where he is with his life, and I think he's gotten to a point where he's more secure and he's happy with the decisions he's making, and which is where we want everybody to get, where you're secure in your new self, and when somebody offers you something that might be connected to your problem, you would say no. There's going to be a struggle. I still feel that when there's alcohol in front of me, I still, I water in the mouth. I feel like drinking. Looks tasty. And if you see an attractive person, sexuality is a part of it. Actually, I talked to Edwin a couple of weeks ago, and I said, see, the thing is, I'm willing to give a talk about the 12 steps, but I don't think sexuality is a problem. I think that's part of you. That's, But if it has come to a point of emotional dependency, yeah, I see now what you're saying. I see why you would think that's a problem now, because you can't control yourselves, and if it's at that point, then I understand, because I know how that feels.
And if it's a source of self-hatred, guilt, self-loathing, low self-esteem, then it's not helping you.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you think, oh God, why did I do that? Oh God, why did I do that again? I know I'm not supposed to, but it feels so good. That's a feeling I have gotten many times. That's a feeling that you might be able to relate with, and that's a feeling which is why we need each other, which is why we need the support, which is why you need to jump in and surrender yourself to them. So, with that, you're ready for step 7. Can everybody please read 1, 2, 3, go?
We humbly ask you to remove our wrongs.
Again, a lot of these steps go hand in hand. When you do step 6, a lot of times, bam. Step 7, when you jump in and you say, Lord, help me, that itself is humility. And that's huge. For us, walang mayabang na gumagaling. That's something I always used to tell my brothers and sisters back at the ranch. Walang mayabang. Let go of that ego. I have I have listened to a lot of speakers and very spiritual people, like priests included, but not just limited to priests, who have said ego is a very big problem of people because that ego prevents us from being humble. That ego tells us that I can do this by myself. That ego tells you that I am different from them. Iba ako. And that's not true. Because we're all connected. We're all the same. If I had let my ego take over, I would have said, no, I'm different from those guys. But I know that we have similar feelings, and I know that I've been through a lot of things that you guys might be able to relate with, and you have gone through some things that I will be able to relate with. We're the same, you know? So I need to humble myself. We need to humble ourselves, because that's the only way we're really going to be able to ask for help. Kasi walang mayabang na gumagaling eh. Kung nagmamayabang tayo, we don't get anywhere. Arrogant people do not learn. And if we let the humility flow in our hearts, we will for sure learn. Because we'll be open to the fact that there's a lot of there's a lot of room for change. And if you are able to do this, ask Him, ask God. And how do you ask God? It's not just by praying and asking God. It's also by asking each other for help. Because as I said earlier, God works in each of us. So with step 7, which is very connected to the last few steps, again, we make a list. Can everybody please read? 1, 2, 3, go.
We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all.
Okay, this is the point where we make another write-up later. The first one is more general. This one is a more specific. At this point, you're more ready to make a specific list of the people that you've harmed. My list was quite long. Because at that point, at the point where I was sent to Nazareth, to the ranch to get well, I had been selling drugs. I had, as I said, sexually hurt my cousin, and at that point I had hurt my siblings. I had been a very, very bad influence to them. I was very aggressive. I was picking fights with people because when you don't do drugs, I'm glad that's not your problem. Because it's a very tough thing to get out of. And at that point, I was doing a lot of really, really bad things. So I had to make a list of the people that I had hurt. Now, am I going to be able to find all those people and say sorry to them personally, one by one? Not necessarily. We'll talk more about that. The next step is very connected to this one. But why is this important? Because admitting this to yourself, you don't even have to share this, because this might be a very long list, depending on what you've done. But to share it with at least one person that you trust. Not even like one by one. If you just, here's my paper, read it if you want. But I'm having faith in you. Here. It could be a priest. Like now, one of the people we're very close to, or one of the group of people we're very close to, is the Missionary Society of St. Paul. They're great. Their office is here somewhere in QC. And yeah, I guess Father Hector would be one of the people that I would say, here's a list of the things I've done. I trust you. I trust you with this. What does that mean? That's huge. To trust somebody, to have faith in somebody that much. That is letting go of your ego. That is getting well right there. And writing this list is also a lot for yourself. Because writing this list is an admittance and knowledge of the gravity of what you've done. It might be it could be very difficult because it's not easy talking about the wrong things we've done, the people that we've hurt. And that's why we have to ask for help from other people to get over that. But it's necessary in the sense that parang nana. It's like you're wounded. And if you don't purge that, if you don't let all that pus out, it's gonna rot inside you and you're gonna get sicker. It's not gonna get well. And that's what this step is. Ilabas lahat ng maduming nasa loob mo para gumaling siya. That's all that really is. So, this is a later step. But you don't have to jump to this yet if you're not ready. This can be quite heavy. Okay? So, step 9. Can you all please read step 9? 1, 2, 3, go.
You may direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others.
Okay, I have to make a point there. Do not set yourself up. I understand that a lot of you are here for sexual orientation and acts that fall under that. Okay? If you're gonna make amends, I suggest not to do it to someone you're attracted to. Don't go up to someone you're attracted to and say, hey, I'm sorry for what I did. That's going to be very tough. Because, why? Because you're probably going to fall into the same mistake, probably. As I said, I am not able, at this point even, to go up to every single person that I heard and say, hey, did I sell drugs to you back in 19 and whatever? And, oh, I'm sorry. I hope you're doing better. That's not going to help me. That's not going to help them. And I probably won't be able to find everybody in the first place. I don't go back to the people that I had relationships with. I just choose to detach and make amends in other ways. What I'm doing now is making amends. I didn't hurt you directly. I didn't know you back then. And I'm glad I didn't know you back then because I was I don't like who I was back then. And we call that a setup. If I go back to the people that I used to have relationships with, it's just not going to end well. It will probably end with anger or some other feeling that comes in. It's just going to ruin everything. And, it's just not good all around. A lot of people also are not willing to forgive in the first place. So making amends doesn't mean that you go directly to the person that you were having a relationship with or the people that you feel you've hurt. It means getting out of that, burning that bridge, and building new ones, helping other people. I became a staff at Nazareth for a while. After I finished the program, I became a staff there. Why? Because I felt like I needed to help. After I was a staff at the program, I worked at the school. I worked in the discipline office. I didn't have the credentials for guidance and counseling, which is why I wanted to be a life coach. And that's why I went into Ronnie's class. And that was how I felt like I could help. So I became a staff at the therapeutic community. And from there, I became a discipline officer. I was a very lenient discipline officer, by the way, because I was the type, I get it. Hindi ako yung tipong, uy, bad yan. No, because I did the same thing. So I understand you. And let me help you get out of that. That was my style. Which the Franciscans didn't like, because they liked it strict and which I don't. Not all of them. The Italians were they like my style. But, so if you're gonna make amends, you don't have to go directly to the people that you hurt. The 12th step talks a lot about how to make amends. Edwin, by leading this group, is making amends. Totally. 100%. I believe that. A lot of the people that have vocations and have do things for other people. Bo Sanchez, I gave a talk at the feast 2 weeks ago. Bo Sanchez is great. I mean, he feels that he has hurt some people in the past, and that's what pushed him to helping people now. And what he's doing is amazing. Saludo ko sa kanya, galing. And that's the power of making amends. He doesn't go directly back to the people that he hurt, or maybe he has, because he's far. I mean, what he does is far beyond what I do when it comes to helping people. But it doesn't have to get to that point. I mean, it doesn't have to. If you feel that it will be dangerous for you, if you feel that it's going to set you up, we call that a setup. I do not hang out with my old drugging friends. I don't. I don't hang out. I haven't seen my old barkada in a long time. I see my cousins at family gatherings. I don't even hang out with them then, right? I don't. Because I make amends in other ways. I move forward. I don't go back. I don't, yes.
There's a previous step. You were saying that there was an activity that you wrote a list of all the...
That's right. It's basically a guilt write-up.
It's a list and also like a sorry letter. Parang hindi naman.
Hindi naman.
You could format it
Yeah,
that way
you could,
if
you
it
could.
helps you.
Yeah. I actually wrote a letter to my cousins, addressed to my cousins, that was, I'm sorry, and I cannot hang out with you anymore. And I intended to give it to them, but the staff at the ranch said, you don't have to. The fact that you did that you wrote that letter, that's inner strength in itself. So it's a lot of self-admittance, it's a lot of also asking for help from other people. So it doesn't have to be directed, if you can, if for example it's your parents, by all means, yes. I wrote many letters to my family saying sorry, and we're okay now. And my relationship with my family is much better than it used to be. And that's very important as well, because they're always gonna be there. So, yes, direct amends whenever possible. Don't set yourselves up, guys. Okay. Step 10. Can we all please read? 1, 2, 3, go.
We continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admit it.
Okay, what does this mean? As my beautiful wife said, we continuously do this. When you make a mistake, you admit it to yourself. Or a lot of times, she is my support group, she tells me, uy, mali ang ginawa mo. And a lot of times, it's hard to admit to yourself that, it's such a small thing. I mean, no. You do not take things lightly. Because if you start taking things lightly, you're going to fall into that same hole. Do not underestimate the nature of our problems. Because once you do that, once you underestimate your enemy is going to kick your ass. Pardon my French. But yes. So you continuously, every day, at the end of the day, you ask yourself, was what I did okay? And there are most days now actually, I feel like magaan ang loob ko. I didn't do anything that's really all that heavy. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for giving me the strength to make good decisions today. But there will be days for sure, where you make decisions where you message somebody that you're not supposed to message, or you communicate with someone you're not supposed to communicate with. Oh, why did I do that? And if you deny that you did it, you're never gonna get better. If you deny that you set yourself up, like if you used to go to a club, for example, that you're not supposed to go to, it's not, you always felt bad afterwards. You always felt dirty or whatever, for example. And kahit dumaan ka lang sa labas, I'm just gonna pass outside. At the end of the day, you have to admit to yourself, I shouldn't have done that. Even something so small, even something so light, I just passed outside. It's nothing, it's not a big deal, whatever. But don't even set yourself up like that. Admit that you made a mistake, that was a wrong decision there, bad call. All of us make bad calls. But if you don't admit it, you're not going to change it. If you don't admit that's a bad call, yes?
You said admit it, so you tell it to someone?
Yeah, you admit it,
You
of
write
course,
it
to
down.
yourself. You don't have to write it down, actually. This is an everyday it's a moral inventory. Basically, admit it to yourself, and if you feel that tomorrow I'm gonna feel like passing by there again, talk to somebody, tell somebody about it.
I had a very bad smoking habit when I was age. I started when I was 14. My parents were smokers. So from 14 to 17, I had a very bad smoking habit. And nowadays, so I haven't had a cigarette 17 onwards. but doesn't mean I don't crave for it. And that's the nature of dependency. You always have a craving. Sometimes they're dull, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're strong. And they're particularly strong on days that you're weak.
Yeah.
Bad days, you
Exactly.
experience rejection at work, you experience some form of failure in areas where you usually find esteem. Alam mo yun, nag-away kayo ng parents mo, nag-away kayo ng friend mo. There are days when you will feel particularly weak, that the urge will be particularly strong. And during those days, like ako, for me, smoking was always like the difficulty. That was the one dependency that I had. I found it very hard to curb. So whenever like nag-aaway kami ni Inigo, it's very weird. Pero I always verbalized him, you know what, I feel like smoking right now.
That means it's bad. That means
Yeah.
what the hell? What are you doing?
No, but it helps me. Kasi I know I'm not gonna do it when I say it. But it's just getting it, admitting that I feel like it. It's weird, diba? Kasi parang nag-aaway kami. Pero I have to say it kasi he's my support group. He's my support person. So if you have a friend, or even like here, if there's somebody that you're particularly close to, somebody that you trust, it helps. It does help, but it's also being very honest with yourself.
Yeah, and it's nice if it's someone non-judgmental. Sometimes I understand when you say it to a parent, you're like, oh, ba't ka naman ganyan?
Not all parents are open-minded.
Okay.
Siyempre, they also came from a different generation. So, iba rin yung mindset nila of what, you know. So, that's why it's difficult sometimes to turn to parents. But if you have a set of open-minded parents, then you're very
That's good.
blessed.
Good for you.
Also,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
really being very honest with yourself. And I think that's what, I think it's when we lie to ourselves. That we end up being very deceitful to other people. The tendency is that there are many ways to lie. There's omitting something, there's minimizing, there's being grandiose, making something bigger than what it is. So there are many ways to lie to others, and there are many ways to lie to ourselves. And I think when we say we take a personal inventory, it's really like consciously stopping and thinking na, am I still okay spiritual-wise? Am I still okay in this regard? Am I still okay emotionally? It's really like taking a long, hard look at yourself and taking a very honest look at yourself. Like even when you lie, sometimes we lie casually. Like, sometimes like some people ask us, oh, naghugas ka ba ng kamay? You say, yeah. Or hindi ka naman naghugas ng kamay. It's a very simple lie, but it's still a lie. I'm using that as an example because I've done that. Like, it's a very, like, and then I think back, bakit ba ako nagsinungaling about that? I don't need to lie about that. But like, it was a very simple thing, but sometimes we tend to do it without really thinking that we're doing it. So it's being very conscious and being very honest with ourselves.
That's very important, and I think in particular what Sean mentioned that was very striking, and which leads us to the next step, is the psycho-spiritual aspect of it. If you admit it to yourself on a spiritual level as well, this can take the form of prayer. A lot of times, a lot of us pray at the end of the day, which is a
Or
very
even
good,
at the start of the
or
day.
at the start of the day, which is very good practice. Something my mom taught me. Even if she's not, well, she's a little judgmental. but at the end of the day, if you pray and you admit, like, Lord, mali ata yung ginawa ko, and it's gonna push you to ask someone for help, because God's not gonna directly like, here, Jesus, go there and save him. It doesn't work like that. But it actually prayer, and then you do something also for yourself. A lot of times God does intervene, but a lot of times God does make us learn from our mistakes, and which is the more common thing, I think. And the psycho-spiritual integration of that is another talk I give. It's very connected. When I slip spiritually, when I stop admitting it, that I make a mistake on a spiritual level, everything else sort of degrades. Everything else sort of falls apart from there. At my lowest points, I realize it all started because my faith started dwindling. And I did not ask for help from God and from my brothers and sisters. So, and I think that leads us to the next step, which is, can everybody please read? This is quite long. 1, 2, 3, go.
We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
Prayer and meditation. I think the power of prayer has never been more tangible for me, has never been more real to me as it has been in recent months. Because as I said, we've found a group where we pray and meditate every month. Of course, we pray ourselves, and I pray also by myself every day. And it's very, very important that we do this. But the power of prayer, I cannot emphasize how amazingly powerful it is. And because if you pray for something, it unlocks things that are, first it starts here. Because when you pray, you're making a conscious choice in your mind to become a better person. And I urge you for your prayers to be more positive, because as I said, your problems are way, 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 way smaller than God. God is so much more powerful. And if you ask God, Lord, make me a better person, that unlocks something inside you that makes you want to be a better person. You're going to take steps to become that better person that you want to be. There are going to be parts of you that are going to be there. You know, sexuality is going to be there, and I don't know if that changes, but you can definitely control yourselves. Alcoholism for me, that's going to be there. I always have that thirst for some reason. It's a genetic thing. I had way too much, and it's still there, but I can definitely control myself. And if you pray, if you meditate, you transcend. And that, I think, is the most important part of the 11th step. You transcend your old self. And this is so true. I cannot emphasize how true this is. I used to not like people. And a lot of people that know me now might think that's weird because I kind of like people now. I used to not trust people because I was bullied a lot. A lot of you might have felt the same thing. I was bullied a lot when I was younger. And I felt like I don't like people. And when I was at the ranch, every day I would pray, Lord, I want to serve you. And if I'm going to do that, I have to like people. That's basic. I can't serve you without loving others. And so in order to do that, I prayed. And next thing I know, I don't even know how to explain it. After daily contemplation, daily meditation, daily prayer, of wanting and praying and asking God to make me love others, like He told me to love others. Jesus' last commandment, love one another. I think they agree. Love one another. And Jesus' only last commandment was to love one another. And whenever I heard that, I felt like, ang hirap. Ang hirap magmahal ng ibang tao, lalo na they're so spiteful and they like to judge and they're such bullies, man. But you have to transcend that. You have to see that there is that side of you too. There is that judgmental, spiteful, not so good side of you too. And if you see that, you sort of connect with people and you want to get better, so you want to help them get better. The best way to get out of a problem, just like as a teacher, I learned this. I eventually, when I was a discipline officer, I moved to Manila, I became a teacher. And I learned that the best way to learn something is to teach it. I'm sure when you thought about life coaching, you yourself became a good life coach, even better, because you learn more when you say it. When I became a staff at the Nazareth Formation House, which is the ranch where I got better, and I became a staffer there, and I told them, and I talked to them, and I gave seminars like this, and I facilitated sessions. I got better. I felt more connected to everybody, and I felt later on that prayer of mine was fulfilled. And I know that was God, because how I feel about people now is very different than I did back then. Because you transcend into a level of understanding that is better than who you are now. And that's a constant thing that we should never lose. I don't care if you're 70. If you constantly want to transcend and get better and better and better, to become to a spiritual Jesus level, Jesus wanted us to be like Him. It's very tough. But I think He might have thought it was possible. At least close, I don't know, disciple level. But that's transcendence. Every day of your life, you want to get better. There are going to be days where you slip. There are going to be days where you slide back. We call it sliding back. That's okay. That's all part of the process. It's all part of your growth. That's all part of your transcendence. But if you want it, if you pray for it, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find. God's going to be good to you. God is good to all of us. But if you're not good to yourself, that is unlocking in the same way a negative thing in you. And you're going to be on a dwindling spiral downward. So be positive in your prayer. Be positive in your meditation. Ask for betterness, and betterness will come. And finally, how do we do that? As I'm doing now, and as Edwin does, and as a lot of people, as Ronnie does, and as a lot of people who feel that they're a part of something bigger than themselves. This is the last step. Last and most important, vital step. And everybody please read this. 1, 2, 3, go.
Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others, practice these principles in all our affairs.
Okay. Believe that you are a person, a man, a woman on a mission. When you've come to this spiritual awakening, when that happened to me 2008, I knew I was meant to help people. And I knew that helping people would help me. And that's a level of insight that not many people understand, sadly. Because, I don't know which fault it is. Is it? There's no one at fault.
We're all just in
Yeah.
different levels in our journey.
That's true. So wise. Yes. And when you come to this spiritual awakening, when you come to this level of yourself, where you understand that if I help others, I am helping me. And I'm not thinking of me. Because thinking of me all the time is a tiring thing. That's oh my gosh, that's exhausting. So get out of yourself. That's what we called it back at the ranch. Get out of yourself. There was a graduate of the center, Jaime Picornel. Jim Campos, who said, believe you are part of something bigger than yourselves. And this guy was one of the happiest people I've ever seen. He was the most authentic. When he laughed from his gut. Have you met people like that? Like they, di ba? Pag tumawa sila talaga, wow, it's such a sincere happiness. And when I saw that, I felt like, oh man, I want to get to that point. I want to be as happy as that guy. And how did he do it? He saw himself as a part of something bigger than himself. And he started helping other people, kids that were having problems. I became a teacher. I became a discipline officer. I now do this. At the place where I work for IT, so it's kind of technical. But we have a scholarship, which I also take part in. Do something bigger than you. Take part in something that is bigger than you. I have a family now. That is bigger than me. I help wherever I can. That is bigger than me. And that for me is the constant everyday step that I take. This is a step that never ends. the 12th step. Because every day, the more you want to help, the more into it you get. I think you guys, you might have given more talks than I have. And the more you help, the more engrossed you get in helping other people, the more into it you become. Find a vocation. That's what vocation is. Find something you believe in that you want to help other people to get. The sign of a true master is a person that transcends himself by helping others to transcend as well. That's the whole belief of the Buddha. That's the whole belief of Jesus. I have found enlightenment, so my mission in life is to enlighten others. So once you get to that level of spiritual awakening, help others. It's the best way. And like Jesus said, love one another. Loving in a very good, very innocent, very pure way, not sexual. That's a very base, that's a very low kind of love. Although it's concerned, it can be considered care. Sexual attraction, that's there. But get to a higher level of love. Get to a higher level where you want to get people like you out of problems that you have or that you have had. That's the best way. And that for me is what's saving me every single day. So, with that, thank you for listening. This is the 12 steps, kanya-kanyang pace. If one person is moving at a faster pace than another, I know the initial urge is to be jealous or to be, bakit siya, nandyan na siya, bakit ako, nandito ako. Yeah, it's a natural competitive animal-based part of us. But pray. It's not about you and that person. It's about you and your former self. Don't compete with that person, with the next guy next to you. Compete with your old self. Who I was yesterday, I want to be better today. And for me, for example, by doing this, I am better today than I was yesterday. Because I met a whole group of people that are great. You guys seem like a great bunch of people. And I'm able to help by sharing what I know. And that makes me better. And the more I do this, the better I get. And I'm not going to stop doing this. So...
And, you can't give what you don't have. So it's very, we always quote yung sinasabi ni Jesus that you have to love others. We always forget the second part. As you love yourself. And we always forget that. And that's why maraming martyr, gusto sa atin yan. Pilipinas, mahilig tayo sa mga telenovela.
It's a very false sense of humility.
Nagpapakamartyr for love. We all have that false sense of what it is to love. But we have to understand the true essence of love is we have to love ourselves first. And accepting that we are individuals that are worthy of love. That all of your scars, all of your flaws, all of the things that you have done, it is part of the whole package of what makes you beautiful. And sometimes it's hard for us to accept that. It's hard to accept that the scars that we have, the traumas that we have experienced, is beautiful because it's so painful. It's so painful to remember. It's so painful to even think about the things that have made us the way that we are, both good and bad. It is part of the holistic package that makes you a beautiful person. You are all beautiful. And I see it all in your eyes. You're wonderful human beings. And you're here because you want to heal. And that's a beautiful thing. That's such a beautiful thing. Because in each one of you, there is the potential to become a wounded healer. And that is the most effective kind of healer that there is. It's a person who has the same wounds. That's why God bled. Jesus Christ bled on the cross for us because He is showing us that He knows our pain. And I think that the message of this is love yourself enough to overcome everything that you've experienced and become the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Because there is that best version of yourself that's still to come. I'm not the best version of myself. Inigo is not the best version of himself. But we're definitely better than who we used to be. So And that's all we can strive for. That's really all we can strive for. It's just to strive to continuously be better. And the way to do that is really by being generous in spirit. By loving others as we love ourselves. We have to, as much as we are generous with others, we have to be generous with ourselves. So when you sin, or when you have a difficult time, when you make mistake, when you lapse, when you relapse, the tendency is to go very, very hard on yourself. Like, why did I do this? Bakit I know better, you know? And sama-sama ko tao. It's the tendency is to be so hard on yourself, but you don't have to be. Forgive yourself. Be kind to yourself. And that's the way to love, to self-love. I know it's cheesy, you know, the greatest love of all is learning to love yourself. It's a very cheesy song, we all grew up with it. But it's true. It's true. You have to learn to love yourself, and it's the most difficult part. Forgiving yourself for the things that you've done. You know, being kind to yourself when you make mistakes. As forgiving as you are with your friends, when they say sorry, you need to give more than that to yourself, because the journey towards recovery and self-love and transcendence it's an up and down journey. Life is a series of ups and downs. You're gonna have struggles. There's gonna be times that you will crawl. There's gonna be times that you will cry. There's gonna be times that you will make mistakes, and there's gonna be times that you will soar. So, since it's an up and down journey, you have to be very kind and forgiving with yourself.
That's right. And in the toughest times, in the greatest challenges, yes.
Yeah.
First,
Yeah.
yung minor and major. Minor question, I haven't seen yung trust. Saan step siya?
Oh, that's included in all of it actually.
Yeah.
Actually, like I said, the 4 keys. First step pa lang,
Yeah,
may trust na. All 4 keys are included in that. When you open up to somebody, you can't open up without trusting. You have to let, along with the humility, along with
surrender.
it all goes together. Trust, acceptance, humility, and
Yeah,
openness.
it's a common thread that's running through all the 12 steps.
And once one of that goes down, think about it. If you stop being open, why are you not open? That's because you don't trust someone. That's or either that or because yumabang ka ng konti and feeling mo kaya mo na, which is not true. Yes.
yung major question is, it's on my mind, and I think on the minds of most of our members is, how do you handle relapse? Like for example, I and my Edwin have been running this group for quite some time now, and even myself have been falling.
Yes,
of course.
So
Yes.
parang the question is, should I go back to step 1? Or if I feel that I'm already on this, parang how would I gauge myself? Kasi that's our weekly question.
Yeah.
When we gather, pick which step are you in and share from that point. So
Yeah.
how can I really assess myself? Where am I?
When you relapse, there's the tendency to feel like
Just a comment. Kasi our group doesn't actually support like sexual orientation change. It's more like a sexual anonymous kind of thing where
Yeah,
there's
it's
total
addiction.
abstinence from sex
Oh, I see.
and all forms, pornography, masturbation, thoughts of sex.
Of course,
Which is very
yes.
noble. I think that's a very noble thing.
So,
Yes.
what do you do if you really
Well,
fall
when
into
you,
relapse?
one is, for example, you have to identify whether it's a slip, a lapse, or a relapse, because those 3 are totally different things. So,
They're very
depending on
degrees.
the gravity. So, a slip, this is addiction terms, ano, and since we're talking about sex as an addiction, diba? Then we will
That's like-
treat it as such. So when we say slip, a slip is something that's minor. So for example, for me, as somebody who's addicted to cigarettes, let's use it as a metaphor. If I smoke once, that's considered, if I expose myself to people that are smoking, like for example, I'm hanging out with a group of people, and there's somebody who's smoking next to me. That's actually what you call a setup situation. This is therapeutic terms. That's a setup situation, that's a slippery situation. It is a situation wherein I can put myself when I am in a relapse mindset. Okay, gets nyo? Because we always say relapse is a process. It doesn't happen automatically. It is a process that starts from small and it progresses to something big. So, like, if you notice me and you, we don't even go, when we're in a situation wherein there's drinking, we always have to be with each other.
Yeah,
And
like for example, see, even something so small as the other day we were having fondue with a friend who's a pastor, very nice guy. And the fondue, they said, "You want to have wine with that?" No, not even that. And we, even because it's a series, a slip is one bad decision.
a lapse
A
is when
lapse.
it has gone on for a month,
Yeah.
2 months, and you know, at any point in time, you can still get up. The tendency is that when people slip or when they lapse, they tend to think, wala na. All the hard work that I've been doing, wala na. I'll toss it out the window, wala na. So they go back into that destructive spiral. And the reason why it's a spiral is because cycle lang yan. Ulit-ulit lang yan. You will find yourself, if you found yourself in rock bottom yesterday when you were down the same path, you're gonna find yourself there again. And it's a cycle. It's a never-ending cycle until you stop it. So, the thing with that, and that's why I think I also wanted to emphasize with you guys self-love and being forgiving of yourself. It's because when people relapse, they tend to go too hard on themselves. The guilt, the shame, is what causes them to go into what we call a full-blown relapse. Kaya sila nagpo-full-blown is because one, they become very secretive about the relapse. And we know this because we've had several friends who have relapsed.
Too many.
So many friends. Kasi there's about 50 of us when we entered the center, all with varying addictions, gambling, sex, what else, pedophilia, violence. So they all have varying addictions. And we've seen too many of them relapse. And the common thread that we see is that it's that sense of identity that we have. Now, when you make a mistake, you are not defined by your mistakes. You are not defined by this one incident wherein you made a bad decision, or this 1 month wherein you made several bad decisions, or 3 months. You are not defined by that. You can always get up and stop. And that's what people, fail to think about when they're in that state. Kasi there's despairing.
And the thing is,
There's despair and there's hopelessness. They think na, ito na talaga ako, hindi na ako magbabago. But you always have to understand, that's part of it. That's part of the process. You will slip, you will lapse, you will relapse, you will crave, but you always get back up. That's what's important. Get
And-
back on the horse.
and in the most challenging times, you'll be surprised. These are the times when you'll find the best opportunities to become better. In the times when you're in the pits, in the times when you feel like, oh, why did I do that? When you feel that feeling of despair, in those crisis moments, those are the times when you can really turn yourself around. Those are the times when you'll really be able to decide. Decision is key here. Because if you decide in yourself, nagagaling ako, I'm gonna get better, then do you ask for help. Then do you pray.
It's also a lot of taking responsibility.
Yeah.
Taking responsibility for what happened. I see a lot of relapse cases, a lot of my peers, and I think one of the common threads between them is also they don't like to take responsibility for what happened.
Hindi ko naman kasalanan yun.
Like if I put myself in a situation, I know halimbawa, nag-away kami, papasok ako sa convenience store, bibili ako ng sigarilyo. Did anybody put a gun to my head? Nobody. I made those choices. I put myself in that situation. So it's also, and that's hard. It's hard to take responsibility and not be hard on yourself. That's